Inside the cave, both divers were trapped. The exit was blocked with falling debris. Visibility was so poor that they couldn't even see their own hands. And now, only a few minutes of oxygen remained. One diver decided to go back to find an alternate way out, while the other stayed behind near the collapsed passage. When the first diver returned after 5 minutes, what he saw was beyond belief. Welcome to Deep Story Hub, where every breath, every heartbeat, and every story takes you deep below the surface. Cave diving is not like ordinary scuba diving. In open water, if something goes wrong, you can always swim straight up to the surface. But inside a cave, there is no up. There are only walls of rock, narrow tunnels, and one tiny path that leads home. If your air runs out, if your equipment fails, if you forget the way, there's no second chance. Cave diving has one of the highest fatality rates among all adventure sports. In swimming, there's about 1 death per 100,000 participants. In base jumping, it's around 43 per 100,000. But among cave divers, the number skyrockets to 138 deaths per 100,000. Every year, around 25 to 30 divers die inside these dark, underwater mazes. The number sounds small only because so few people dare to enter them. In the state of Florida, there's a place known as Sherlock Springs, a hidden network of underwater tunnels. From the surface, it looks peaceful, almost beautiful, a small, circular pond surrounded by trees. But beneath that calm surface lies a labyrinth of limestone caves, twisting and turning like the veins of the earth itself. The cave descends 300 feet deep. The water stays at a constant 20 to C, and when clear, it's like swimming through glass. On November 17, 1991, the morning sun glimmered over the spring's entrance. A professional diving group known as the Woodville Karst Plane Project (WIC) was preparing for an expedition. Their mission, to explore new passages and map the cave system. Among them were 2 friends, Bill and Parker Young, fearless and hungry for adventure. For them, this wasn't just another dive. It was a chance to break limits, to make history. But they didn't know this journey would soon test the very limits of their lives. From above, Sherlock Springs looked harmless, just a round pool about 60 meters across. But once you descend, the walls close in. The first passage is known as the Scar Restriction Zone, a narrow tunnel where only 1 diver can pass at a time. Even tanks scrape against the stone as divers squeeze through. But once that passage opens, it reveals a breathtaking sight, a massive underwater corridor, like a highway through another world. Beautiful, yet deadly. That day, the WIC team divided into 4 groups. Each had a specific job, so not even a single mistake could happen. The first group stayed at the surface, monitoring time and communication. They were the safety link between the world above and below. The second team placed decompression tanks along the route, oxygen bottles that divers could use on the way back to safely surface. Without them, no diver could make it out alive. The third group handled guidelines and safety checks, fixing ropes, securing backups, and marking the return path. And the fourth was the exploration team, Bill and Parker. Their task, to push deeper, map new tunnels, and return with data. Both checked their gear, whispered a prayer, and began the descent. As they moved down, the light from above faded into darkness. Soon, there was only the faint beam from their headlamps cutting through the black water. At 20 meters, they met George from the decompression team. After a quick signal, they continued deeper, passing through the Scar Restriction Zone and into the vast chambers beyond. The sight inside was mesmerizing. Stalactites hung like chandeliers, and the water shimmered with soft blue light. For a moment, they forgot they were in one of the deadliest places on Earth. They reached a point known as Grand Canyon 4, then descended even lower into Lower Wakulla Room. Everything was going according to plan. The dive was smooth. Their spirits were high. But oxygen levels don't care about excitement. When their gauges started to drop, the 2 agreed to head back. Neither of them knew freedom was now behind them. As they turned back through the tunnels, something had changed. The water that was once crystal clear was now clouded with silt-fine particles stirred up from the cave floor. Within seconds, visibility dropped to 0. They couldn't see each other, couldn't even see their own hands. The tunnel had become a blind maze. Holding onto the guideline, they tried to follow it back to the exit, but when they reached the spot where the tunnel should have led upward, it was blocked. A collapse had sealed the way out. Even the safety line was buried under the rubble. Panic crept in. Their air tanks were almost empty. Bill wrote on his slate, "Wait here, I'll check the line." He swam back to confirm the direction. After checking the markers, he realized this was indeed the only exit. He turned around and rushed back. But when he returned to the spot Parker was gone, Bill flashed his torch through the muddy water. Nothing, only swirling dust and silence. Then, he noticed something. A faint current water moving through the debris. He thought, maybe Parker found a way through.
He didn't have time to think. His oxygen was nearly gone. With shaking hands, he began to dig through the silt, pushing rocks away, fighting against the water pressure. Every second felt like a lifetime. 2 meters of debris felt like 2 miles. Finally, he broke through to the other side. The tunnel curved upward. He saw a hanging regulator on the guide line but ignored it. He had no air left to spare. Holding his breath, he swam upward with every last bit of strength. At last, he reached a decompression station, grabbed an oxygen tank, and took a deep breath. For the first time in an hour, he thought, "I survived." But then, he saw it. Parker's oxygen bottle and touch, hanging just beside him. That meant Parker never made it here. Bill's heart sank. He realized his best friend was gone. A few minutes later, George from the support team descended and met Bill. Bill wrote on his slate, "Parker didn't make it." George tried to pull him up, but Bill refused. He didn't want to leave without his friend. Eventually, George brought help, and they forced Bill to the surface. When the rest of the divers heard Parker was missing, they went back down, but all they found were his regulator and tank, lying separately in the dark. The next morning, Parker's body was found near the upper section of the cave. He had removed his gear, wearing only his wetsuit. But why? Experts later discovered that Parker had tried to dig through the blockage, hoping to clear the exit for Bill. In doing so, he ran out of air. He likely thought removing his gear would make him float upward, but he lost consciousness just a few meters away from safety. Years later, scientists investigating the cave discovered the real cause of the collapse. When the divers were decompressing earlier, their bubbles had collected under the cave ceiling. Over time, those bubbles weakened the rock until a large section caved in, blocking their way out. It was an accident no one could have predicted. But one thing was certain: Parker's sacrifice saved Bill's life. If he hadn't tried to clear the way, Bill would never have escaped that day. In the end, the cave kept one soul and let one go. A story of friendship, fear, and sacrifice deep beneath the earth, where light fades and courage is the only thing that breathes.